Hello, my name is Austin Habbage, the founder of Think Catholic, and you're listening to the Summa podcast, where we study St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologiae in a way simple and insightful for anyone to understand. The Summa podcast is brought to you by Think Catholic. Taking 2 questions of the Summa a day, we'll seek to summarize St. Thomas's responses, discovering the brilliance of Aquinas and his Catholic faith is day 175. So let's get started. We're covering today questions 114, 115 of the Secundae, that is, of the friendliness, which is called affability, and of flattery. The translation that I always use in these podcasts is the one generously provided to me by Ave Maria Press, the 5-volume set translated by the Fathers of the English Dominican province, which you can now get at a discounted price from Ave Maria Press's site by typing in the code SUMMA10. And so here we go. Article 1, whether friendliness is a special virtue. Affability is equated to friendliness in this article. In St. Thomas's words, affability, which is what we mean by friendship, is a special virtue. Friendliness is a unique virtue because it is directed towards a unique good. That good is the good of acting fittingly, becomingly in our ordinary deeds and words towards others. This becomingness of order towards our fellow man in mundane, regular interactions is termed here the virtue of friendliness. Then giving a more precise articulation of what we've been saying, St. Thomas writes, friendliness, which consists merely in outward words or deeds, bears a certain likeness to friendship thereto insofar as a man behaves in a becoming manner towards those with whom he is in contact. Article 2, whether this kind of friendship is a part of justice. Although the virtue of affability, like justice, pertains to interactions with others, it falls short of the strict definition of justice by not binding a man by a way of legal debt, like a man does have to pay $5 for the $5 Pepsi, but it does trigger a kind of moral debt, a debt of fittingness, of equity, as St. Thomas calls it here. And that because society is a product of nature, in that man has a social nature, his humanity draws him towards the construction of society, and therefore the things required for society to be conducted appropriately are fittingly required of its members, and affability is one of these things. For if every man offends his neighbor through his conduct, society would unravel as we know it. Giving then the last word to St. Thomas, he writes, friendship regards merely a certain debt of equity, namely, that we behave pleasantly to those among whom we dwell, unless at times for some reason it be necessary to displease them for some good purpose. Moving then to question 115 of flattery. Article 1, whether flattery is a sin. And it's good to begin this question with some words from St. Thomas, which all of us could probably take to prayer. Although the friendship of which we have been speaking, or affability, intends chiefly the pleasure of those among whom one lives, yet it does not fear to displease when it is a question of obtaining a certain good or of avoiding a certain evil. So we should be friendly unless our neighbor's good or the common good or our good requires us to act otherwise. For all of us probably know of that temptation to simply be an appeaser, to keep the peace even if it leads to the demise of ourselves and or those around us. Thus flattery regards seeking some good by being nice to others but in a way contrary to reason, and by being contrary to right reason, either by being false or being at excess, like when one seeks to please another when they actually ought to rebuke them instead. Aquinas gives us a couple examples of flattery and why they are sinful in these words. He says, it would belong to flattery if one wished to praise a person for things in which he ought not to be praised, and since perhaps they are evil, or because there may be fear lest human praise should incite him to vainglory. It would be sinful to wish to please men for the sake of vainglory or gain, or to please them in something evil. Moving to Article 2, and our last article in this very brief episode, whether flattery is a mortal sin. If the act is directly contrary to charity, then it is. For example, if a man were to praise another person's sin, this would definitely be opposed to the love of God and neighbor. Or if a man should flatter some other person to their own spiritual demise, the demise of their own body in some way, these would also be examples of mortal sin. But if it is a less malicious kind of flattery, then it may only be a venial sin. As Aquinas writes, bringing us to the close of another episode, he says, "If one man flatters another from the mere craving to please others, or again in order to avoid some evil, or to acquire something in a case of necessity, this is not contrary to charity. Consequently, it is not a mortal, but a venial sin." And with that, we close another episode. We have just finished covering questions 114, 115 of the secundae, that is, of the friendliness, which is called affability, and of flattery. My name is Austin Habish with Think Catholic, and I cannot wait to see you tomorrow.